Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This media show where I talk about TV shows that are crime dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about The Old Man Season 2, Episode 2. A great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, I believe Season 1 had the 1-2 punch of like both the first two episodes were dropped at once, I believe. I can't remember the context fully, but I think they were. But either way, I think it works so nicely with this, just a 1-2 punch of just how, because obviously the first episode you're mainly following the through line of seeing Harold and Johnny's perspectives on things, and now in this episode it's mainly from Emily and kind of Hamzad's perspective, and I think that's so beautifully done because you could have easily made that one single episode that you're constantly bouncing back and forth between, but making them their own solitary episodes, like the entire focus is on that. Because I mean, it lends to like you not even knowing whether Johnny's right or not. Like Johnny's belief that, oh, Hamzad would kill Emily because she would say the wrong thing. She'd do something and make it be like her mom or be like me, which there is validity to that as we see in this episode. So it kind of keeps you on edge because you're like, right, not only do the characters not know, that being Harold and Johnny, whether or not Emily's okay, Harold's going to say like, yeah, he's like, you don't know her, she's tough, and you don't know what she's capable of, you don't know who she is, but he's like, yo, I know who Hamzad is though. So it still leaves enough room and doubt for you, but like even though the characters might have their doubts or whatever, but like you as the audience don't even know either, and because you still don't know, like when you're watching this episode, you're gonna like to believe like, nah, she's kind of a main character, there's no way they're gonna do that, it's Hamzad's own daughter, but it's like, yeah, but there's a lot to that. A lot of what Johnny said does weigh heavy. But anyway, obviously for Emily, she's kind of thrown in the middle of all of this. Her entire world is kind of flipped upside down. They won't tell her anything. It's like, oh, like, but you know, his right-hand lady is like, okay, fine. Hamzad is your actual father, and you're going to want to be dressed like this when you meet him. She's like, okay. Emily's like, okay, fine, I'll meet him now. And she was like, no. Like, even though Emily's like, no, you said he wants to meet me, I want to see him right now. And it was like, yeah, because she knew how much of a bad idea this is. Because she even, I don't know if she was the one that was driving, but whoever was driving was like, I don't know how this is going to go out. Maybe some of us won't survive. I think it was more specifically tied to who knows how the hell Hamzad's going to react to all of this. So this could be bad. This could be good. Who knows? But I think it's a situation of we want to give a breathing room. We want Hamzad to kind of like be calculated and sitting and thinking about what he's going to say and do, rather than immediate, because all those emotions rushing forward could lead to things being nasty all across the board. So it's like you don't want Emily meeting him right now, firing off like questions she might have that might play into what Johnny said, or she says or does a wrong thing that would get her killed. So I think it was just kind of like a, let's kind of keep this as equilibrium esque if we can. So ultimately she does meet Hamzad, and it's like, right, what do you know about me? And it's like, well, my mom said that they told me about you, and that my dad said that he had to like save my mom from you, or I can't remember exact wording. I'm probably completely getting it wrong, or even when I'm trying to paraphrase what she had said. But he was like, beyond that, what did they tell you? And she was like, nothing. You know, because he's like, right, this is your family. He's like, over there, that's where my father lays to rest. He fought back against invaders, and his fathers before him fought back against like Queen Victoria. You know, so it's kind of like we have this lineage of fighting here, and for her, she has all these questions, and I thought it was so interesting because it makes it so tense, because she's like, I want to know about my mom. And you could tell that rubs him the wrong way. It's like, because it's a sad thing of, you want to know about your mom. I'm telling you, you now know I'm your father. You have no questions for me. Well, the questions you do have are related to your mom, because her mom has been a massive question mark in her life. And it's like, he's a question mark, but it's like, I need answers about my mom, because Johnny would never give her the answers. And now like her mom would never give her the answers. And it's like, you out of anyone might be more likely to give me the answers. Like, yes, I came here because I want to know about my mom, but also you're kind of the one who brought me here. You kidnapped me, but I wouldn't be in this situation if I didn't come looking for answers as well. You know, as Hamzad kind of makes the point of like, you did not have to get on a plane, but you did. But like her question is like, she's like, my mom, like, tell me something about her. And it's like, he's like, well, she was a betrayer. She had no loyalty to anyone. She's like, no, like, the fact of that, she's like, there had to be good in my mom. Like, the fact is, and it was really heartbreaking where she's like, I never saw that side of my mom. Like, I want to know, like, I got to know that there was something more to my mom before the mom I got to know. I grew up knowing my mom a certain way, but it's like, there had to be something, there had to be good in her beforehand. There just had to be, you know, because she's like, I never saw that light in her eyes because by then it had already kind of dimmed, and it's just all the secrets that her mom had to keep and just everything weighing on her. And now it's just like, I got to find out who my mom was before, because I saw a very specific side of my mom, and I'm like, I don't want that to be, that's all I've known, but I've always wanted to believe there had to be more to her, and you're the only person who could tell me who she was. And Hamzad kind of walks away, and his right-hand person is like, yo, like, I know, like, how much it like takes for you to be here. I just like, also, like, what did you expect this situation to be? It's just, I want you to know that doing what you're doing, what it's going to cost you, you need to understand, because there are ramifications for doing what he did. Once again, you still, at the end of the day, you have your relationship with the U.S. as it is, but you still did kidnap a U.S. federal agent. Then on top of that, Omar shows up, pontificating and just acting like he's so under control of like, oh yeah, like I've heard some things. I even love Hamzad being like, well, you need to get your hearing checked. So he's pushing a button, and Hamzad, because he's like, oh, I respected you, I looked up to you. Like, the fact of the matter is, I want to help you out. If you have said American that you kidnapped, give her to me, and I can deal with that situation for you. But Hamzad's like, I don't know what you're talking about. There is no kidnapped American. I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, okay, but he's like, there are 2 Americans here, and he references one of them specifically, Harold. So I was like, oh, he didn't ask you about the other one. So I was like, so he doesn't know that it's Johnny, does he? But now it's a thing of, well, what do you do? Omar knows more than he's letting on. And it's like, yeah, he's going to come back. He already told you why this situation is going to fall apart, because Hamzad found out, wait, there wasn't a payment made to them. And it's like, no, there wasn't. He's like, why wasn't it? She's like, he literally just explained to you why there wasn't a payment. Like, everything's kind of being stalled. You crossed the line doing what you did, and like, there is going to be a price to pay for it. And ultimately, it's like the only way to rectify this is to make Emily disappear. So he's like, right. I goes in the room. He's like, don't say anything. I didn't want to hear it. I don't want to hear anything you have to say or try to explain. He's like, I don't know what I thought, but when I hear you and see you, all I see is your mother. And she's like, okay, go ahead. Like, you act like you don't see anything, or you're the one that brought me here. So you're either too much of a coward or too much of an idiot to ask me any questions that you're obviously wanting to ask me. You know, you're the one that brought me here. Yeah, I might have wanted answers, but you wanted answers too, but you're too scared because you're afraid of what I'm going to say. And she's just putting the gun closer to her head. It's like, go ahead and pull the trigger if that's what you're going to do. And the 2 of them tussle it out hardcore. And once again, there's a safe bet she wasn't going to die, but I'm still kind of nervous because I'm like, I actually don't know. I mean, he was on top of her, choking her out. Like, when I mean, they were about ready to like kill each other. Like, they were like going for it. This wasn't just like some haphazard struggle and fight. Like, I figured the moment she grabbed the gun, I thought there was a part of me that was wondering, like, is it going to be a test where it's going to turn out the gun wasn't loaded and Emily would get the gun and pull the trigger and he'd be happy because he's like, oh, that wasn't your mother, that was me. Or maybe it's going to be a thing of, no, that was your mother. Regardless of it, once again, Johnny has recognized that there is some of Hamzad there. That bits of Emily that reminded him of Hamzad. And I think it's so interesting because part of me wonders, it's like, does he have the opposite fears of Johnny? Because Johnny's biggest fear was like, right, there was nothing of me there. The part of her that was supposed to be so buried that no one knows it exists is the part of her that is Hamzat, and it was coming to the surface. And even just back then, I could see it when she was little. So what if Hamzat's in the same position of, I know that I'm your father, but what if I look at you and all I see is your mother and him? You know, I don't even see me anymore. And so that maybe that's an element to it as well. But when the time comes, he couldn't finish her. And Emily ends up getting up, picking up the gun, and she can't pull the trigger because it's a complicated thing. At the end of the day, regardless of what she knows about Hamzat, this is still your father. This is the man who has all the answers, you know, because he'll be able to answer stuff. Johnny won't answer certain things, but he also can't answer some things as well. So this is the man who has the answers you need. You've been looking your entire life for. So it's kind of hard. And so his right hand comes in and she's kind of like, okay. She even tells Emily later on, I was not expecting to come back in the room and find you. You were supposed to be dead. This was supposed to be all end all be all, but because you're not, that means there is no plan because we're freestyling this as we go. So ends up taking Emily to, I don't know if the others are also her cousin, or just that one is her cousin, who it's like, right, she ends up saying that something I thought was interesting, where she was like, basically there is this, it was kind of like, not an open secret, but she's like, I knew there was something missing. None of us ever talked about it, but it was kind of there. It was kind of known that something was missing. I mean, we just never talked about it. Understandable. It probably would have been like such a very nasty thing to bring up, and it's just like, you just don't talk about it. Like, last thing you wanted to do is like probably like set Hamzat off just because of just everything he's been through and just what he lost, and obviously that was driving him and consuming him for the past like 3 decades. So because she also, her cousin also said, like, right, she was old enough to remember. I don't know if it was a thing of like, oh, I was old enough to remember you when you were around and noticed when you weren't gone, or at least I was old enough to know something was missing. So those two options don't have to necessarily be mutually exclusive. They could kind of go hand in hand, but still. She also starts hanging around her cousin's son, and he's kind of teaching her, and it's kind of, her and her cousin have this really interesting conversation later on. Well, for one, it's like, well, she finds out more about what Hamzat does for all of them. It's like, right, the Taliban came and like her husband died, and it's like Hamzat sent them away. It's like, he has protected us, because if it wasn't for him and what he's built up here, this would not be a good situation for us. It'd be a very scary situation for all of us. So it is that complicated thing of now, like, right, he is the boogeyman you've heard about, Hamzat, but it's also like, right, knowing what it means for so many other people, and especially considering this is family, and it's like, well, after he tried to kill you, but then you also couldn't kill him, so it's like, it's kind of a complicated, awkward situation. But Emily had said that she used to, like, right, she like, oh, they were, was it knitting? And she was like, oh yeah, like, I'm, never did it. She's like, I used to watch my mom all the time. But she was like, but it also seemed like sometimes I'd look at my mom and I'd see, like, it almost seemed like she didn't want to do it. Like, she would rather be doing something else. And sometimes I'd sit there wondering, like, well, what else would she rather be doing? And now that she's here and everything, she's like, I now wonder if maybe that thing, like that, she seems sad, but maybe that's the only happy spot in her life, because she was able to do something that reminded her of where she came from, reminded her of the place where she learned it from, the home that she had abandoned everything for. And for Emily, it was like, I thought when I would come here and get these answers that I would get, like, it'd be a fountain of answers, right? Every question I've ever had would get an answer. And it's just like, life doesn't work that way, and it's just like, now it's kind of like, was it even worth it in the end coming here, considering everything being what it is? But either way, all the while this is happening, we had the situation from last episode with Omar happening. So he goes to see his boss, the minister, and tells him, like, yo, Hamzat lied to us. Like, we need to kind of, like, whatever relationship we have, we need to change it. And the minister's like, okay, we'll reevaluate it. So when Hamzat's right hand, she goes to check out the place, the deposit, there are Taliban people there, and there's no work being done. So she calls up whoever she calls up. She's like, whoever was higher up, screwed up here. Like, there's nothing happening here. You gave me assurances that this would all work out, because this not working out on our end is screwing things up on your end. So I can only assume, and I'm like, it has to be Marion, right? Did she call in something? Because I mean, not less the minister, not less he contacted someone he has in a higher enough position, because they kept cutting back and forth. So those scenes might be directly connected. But I also wonder, like, there's no, because even Marion threw it out there last episode, like, well, you thought I screwed you up. Harold, you haven't talked to me in like 30 years, and I never thought we'd talk again. That's why I'm like, I don't know if she's responsible for that, or whether that's just supposed to mean like the minister and Omar conversation is directly connected with, they pull some strings, as they were saying they were going to reevaluate the relationship. So, and considering there are Taliban, people there, so it's kind of like, I don't know if the Marion thing is just has nothing to do with this, or whether it's connected to all of that. Whatever the case may be. Omar comes in and just wants to see Hamzat, comes in with a crew. So Hamzat, the right hand, kind of has to bring him deeper in. But that wasn't even all his men. It was only some, and they had guns locked on. And I love her point of, we could have kept this cordial. The fact of the matter is, we could have bribed you. Or you could have worked with us and we could have gotten you more influence and powerful influence than what you have currently. Like anything you aim for, the power and influence is what you wanted. We could have like given that or helped you accomplish that if you stayed friends with us. Now it's kind of like, well, now the worst situations come about. But he's like, okay, you think this is the worst? You think it's going to be bad for me? No, it's going to be bad for you. Because the moment you lower your guns, I'm going to make sure that every boy in this village gets conscripted. And you're like, Jesus. So he's like, okay, so now let's go back to the point of, he's kind of like basically like, yo, so who's in the worst in this situation? So I guess it's like she was trying to scare him off, but Omar's just kind of like very full of himself. It's like, nah, I've got the backing I've got, and I'm not going to stand down. Too ambitious. So I don't know if she was just trying to scare him away, because I thought like, why don't you just light them up then? But it's like, but then like, once again, it's a point she had made earlier in the episode to Hamzat of like, we are stuck between two mortal enemies, and that is not the position to be in and the time to be in, where you freestyling, you wilding out, and you just kind of like, this is not the time to go wild. It's time to have like a concrete plan. But like I said, they are flailing this whole situation. So Hamzat had grabbed up Emily and bounced. And in the moment they're like, she's like, where are we going? He was like, the cave. I was like, oh my God. I thought you came to the cave because you wanted to. Like, I thought you knew that they were there. It's like, no, you just happen to be heading there because you're trying to find a place to hide Emily, and you stumble across them. I was like, that I would have never read that situation at the end of life. I mean, it's out of context. So obviously we had the greater context, but I would have never guessed that was a context. My assumption was like, oh, he heard about you guys. He had it all planned out. Once again, it's like, he knew about the cave. It's like, Abby thought it was her secret, just like, oh, the deposit. It's like, oh, he ended up finding it. So I thought like, oh, he found out about this. He had 3 decades of life. No, apparently he's the one that told Abby about it. And it just happens that he needed this cave just at the same time that Harold and Johnny are taking advantage of that cave. So you're like, interesting. But I also love that scene where like Hamzat is walking with Angela, and it's like when he's talking to her, once again, I'm going to keep going back and forth between the two. Sorry, I've been pretty consistent this episode about calling her Emily. Well, he's walking with a younger Emily, and and talking to her, and he's asked like, "Oh, are you happy?" And she's like, "I don't understand." Because he's like, wherever he's like, I wanted to bring you here, and he's kind of like, I'm sorry that I did, but it's just like, he's like, I needed to see you. I needed to say goodbye to you for the first time and the last time, and just I need to know that the life you're going back to what you grew up knowing, that you are happy, and I can at least have some solace knowing that you're out there and you're happy. And at the end of the day, she was like, I need to ask you a question, and it might not be right for me to ask you a question, but what do you think of me? And he's like, I will tell you something. You wanted to know the good about your mom, and I'm going to tell you the great life lesson that your mom taught me, that you can love somebody or you can trust somebody. Like, no matter how impossible it seems or whatever the case may be, there will come a time where you have to choose. And Emily's like, I don't believe that. He's like, I'm glad I was the one that kind of got to impart that upon you before life puts you in a situation where you have no choice but to choose. Before that choice is thrusted upon you, I'm glad I was the one that ended up having to, it's like your mom taught me that lesson, and I, as your father, got to teach you that lesson. So I'm like, well, that seems very poetic considering we know he's about to walk into that cave, and the way Emily was holding her hand, I was like, oh, she's strapped too. So I was like, how is this going to play out? Like, is that conversation about to be indicative of the ending of episode 1? And we all come full circle to where the last episode ended, and he goes in, she hears the gunshot and goes in, and she lowers the gun and she's shocked. So multitude of things she saw, either shock of, oh my God, Dad, you're here. Once again, there's no way her dad's dead. well, bio dad might be dead. Like, there's a chance he might have shot Hamzat. Like, maybe Johnny had a gun and pulled it out just before Hamzat could pull the trigger, because of the Emily of it all. Maybe it's all actually very poetic, where it's like, okay, Johnny couldn't kill Hamzat in front of Emily all those years ago. What if now he hesitated because he couldn't do the same thing now? Well, what if Hamzat couldn't do that on the flip side of it then? So I was like, that'd be poetic, very tragic. Because like, there's a good chance like maybe Johnny's not the one that pulled on him. Maybe Harold woke up at the last minute and he's the one that popped off. Or like I said, maybe Hamzat decided like, I'm not going to shoot you, Johnny. I'm going to shoot and kill Harold over here. Or maybe he shot at Johnny and missed. But we don't know what Emily came across at the end. But we saw her drop the gun and have a shocked look on her face. So I'm so excited to see where the next episode ultimately takes us going forward with all of this. Like, there's so many things spinning. But once again, I love that it's allocated to just what's going down here in Afghanistan. And like, we have no idea what's happening stateside fully and what's going on that front. But we have these two stories that are intermingled and just like flip side and parallels to each other. So I thought that was so beautifully done for, like I said, the 1-2 punch of the first 2 episodes of this. So I'm excited to see where the rest of the season takes us. Like I said, I have no idea. I've avoided the trailer. I got an ad for the trailer for this show like just today, and I was like, nope, I don't want to see anything. So I not quite sure what to fully expect on where this is going to end up taking us for the rest of the season, but also where the next episode is going to pick up. Well, I mean, it's going to pick up in the aftermath of episode 1's ending / this episode's ending, but also what ends up happening, what's the fallout, what's the aftermath, and where do we go from there. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.